Okay, year 8. So what you want to do first is you're going to get your pattern. You can draw around your model if you already have that, and that will work as a pattern as well, or you can draw around one that your teacher's printed out. They'll be able to help you know what you need to draw around. Okay, so you draw around that. If it's not already cut out, you just cut the paper bit out, but first of all you just need to draw around it in your mini whiteboard pen. Nice and simple. When you've done that, you then get your scissors and you cut around it. Now, actually, it is seems like it might be a tricky thing to do, but it is manageable with your scissors. So that is absolutely fine. Just take your time and be really precise with that. Just a key thing to note, you then need to do the other side. So sorry for the fabric change, but essentially when you do the other side, you have to flip it and draw around it the other way. So you draw the mirror image. So just make sure that you're drawing one way, one the other. Then you will have your two pieces. You want any whiteboard pen markings to be the inside of your toy. So use your outside bit, and then you're going to arrange your facial features. So it's a good idea. You might have cut out some offcuts. So to keep any offcuts, swap colours with the person next to you. Use any of that fabric you might have brought in from home. Choose your thread, and then plan out where you want your facial features to go. Now we're not using the tape anymore, so you can tie knots at the end of your thread. So tie yourself a nice big knot because you don't want it to go through. Then see what you're going to start with. So if you're putting felt underneath your eye, then you can just secure that with a few rough stitches. If you're going to put a button on top and you're not going to see it, just line up where you want it to go and secure it with a few rough stitches. You might just be doing an applique eye, in which case you would apply all of those applique skills that we've learnt before. So this prototype is really just putting everything we've learnt on paper into practice with actual fabric. So I'm just roughly here attaching that so I can then put the button on top. And then you all learn how to sew a button on. In the last video, this is just a real button, not a paper button. And you're going to sew it on exactly the same. Okay, through the middle and then go round. And you're just going to keep looping round and round until you're confident that your button is nice and secure. Okay, it might take a little bit of fiddling to try and get your stitching through, and you need to make sure that you're holding that button really tightly in place. But you just want to make sure that you secure it really nice and evenly. Okay. And then you go on to the next side. You can poke through from the front just to give yourself a hole to aim for on the back. So that's the fiddliest bit about buttons, it's just getting them through. Just finding that small hole from the other side. So once that is done, you're going to secure your thread on the other side. And what I like to do is I just poke it back through the thread that's already there. And then I just loop my needle back through. And that's going to attach your button. You then will sew on your second eye. I haven't shown you how to do that because it's exactly the same. Then we're going to think more about our applique techniques for the nose. You can see that I cut out a heart shape for the nose and I just turned it upside down. So if you want a nose and you think you're going to have time to do that, you can add one in. But remember, you're responsible for your own time planning. If you're not a quick sewer, maybe just do eyes and mouth or eyes and nose. So prioritise what you know you can get done. So I'm going to use the running stitch method to applique my heart on, making sure I've got really neat and even stitches. I've attached my thread the same way with the knot at the back, and I'll finish it off the same way. So this has been sped up. You're obviously going to work a lot slower than this to create a nice even shape. And the key to good sewing is just correcting any mistakes as you go, working slowly, not getting ahead of yourself. So if something does go wrong, you can undo it later on. So once you've got that stitch in, all you need to do is exactly the same thing. Your needle's going to help you, so I'd rethread it. Just go through on the back one of those stitches you've already made, pull it up, and then that little loop you just go through, and that's going to really secure your thread. And you can do that a few times if you want to make sure it is extra secure. I'm then going to think about my mouth. And again, if you want to go for a higher level skill, go for cross stitch. If you are not as confident in your sewing, then go for a simple running stitch. Or if you don't have time, then a nose and eyes is absolutely fine. We just want to see a range of different skills on this. So I would do my cross stitch mouth by doing a row of diagonal lines in one direction. Just like we've practiced many times. You'll be working even slower than me, so you'll be able to have much more precision and control. And then all you need to do is go back across those. Remember, you're going through the same holes, you're going back to create that X shape. And if you're doing running stitch, you just do your line across. So now you can see you've got a nice mouth, and again just finishing it off in that same way. That back is going to be on the inside of your toy, so it really doesn't matter if it looks a bit messy. And my toy is starting to come together. If you have extra time, then you can simply add yourself a little extra applique or a little patch or a little pocket or anything like that. So you can see I've added that there. Now you are on to your second lesson. You are going to do your whip stitch in your second lesson. So what you need to do is tie a knot, secure it through, and then just like with your model, you then just start whip stitching around the edge. Try and line your model up as best as you can. If bits don't quite line up, when you whip stitch them together, it will even itself out. So just try and keep it as neatly in line as possible, but the whip stitch will cover any areas where there might be a funny overlap or something like that. If you've cut nice and neatly, you shouldn't have an issue. And again, we just loop round the edge of the fabric like we always do with whip stitch. You've practiced this quite a lot now, so you should know what you're doing. So key to good whip stitch, making it nice and even on the front and the back. So if you go wrong anywhere, you just unpick it and go back to where you were. So just always go back to the last point it was right. Then you'll have whip stitched all the way around, and this is most likely lesson 3. So make sure when you're doing your whip stitch that you've left a nice gap in the bottom for your stuffing. And all you're going to do, take really small bits of stuffing, and you're literally going to stuff your funny ugly monster. So this is where it starts to come to life, where you can put all that stuffing in. If you need a bit of extra help, you can use something long like a pencil. Is probably the safest thing to use to just poke the stuffing in and really spread it out within that area. Yeah, so just spread the stuffing in. And once you've done that, you're happy with the amount of stuffing, your teacher can always help you if you're not sure how much to put in. You just continue to whip stitch those legs round. Okay, so what that means is you're closing your toy. So it's very nearly coming to life. You might want to start thinking of a name for it at this point. So yeah, so once you've done that, you're then going to close up just using the whip stitch. As you're closing, you might need to add a little bit more stuffing or anything like that in. You might need to use your long pencil to poke it in to check where you're creating those kind of limbs. Don't worry about stuffing the arms or the hair, like fiddly bits like that. But once you have got enough stuffing in, you just need to whip stitch the rest of the way around. It might be a bit trickier now, trying to contain all the stuffing, but just be patient with it, and you'll get there. So just using all those skills to sew it around. Just being patient in those fiddly areas. And then you close it the same as you do. Just try and poke through underneath some of those whip stitches, and then just trim it off so you can't see it. Again, if you're a bit confused on how to do that, your teacher can show you a bit more close up how to do it. Okay, and adding some last minute bits of stuffing, always good. Make sure he's nice and filled. And that's it really. So once you've done that, you'll close it up, you'll do your nice closing, and you'll all be done. So just be patient in the process of doing this. It might take a little bit of time, but you're completely done once this is done, and you've got yourself a nice little friend. You can just see that last bit being closed up here. And then if you want to see the end, just it goes a bit off the screen, I'm afraid, but you just put it underneath and then trim the excess off. And there you have it.